Welcome to PRAJNA Sparks, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma talk, contemplate with our minds and in our hearts, and engage in guided meditation. In this episode, we're going to be exploring mind further. Every episode of PRAJNA Sparks takes hours to plan, record, and edit. We ask that, if you haven't already, you give us some time today to like, subscribe, share, and review our podcast. Alongside your own practice, this is the best possible offering as it helps the Dharma reach new listeners. Hello, friends. We're delighted to have you joining us for this episode on unity, where both Lama Yeshe and myself, Lama Zopa, are going to engage in a little bit of a different style than we usually do for this episode. We're taking a more interactive approach today, where we actively integrate the three aspects of listening, contemplating, and meditating into action in the sense of us having a discussion about unity. To begin, as we usually do, let's take a couple of minutes to ground. If you are walking around as you listen to this, driving, doing daily things, chores, what have you, I do encourage you to slow down just a little bit, allow your attention to turn inwards towards the breath, such that you're cultivating that awareness, one-pointedness, sense of presence, where mind is both easeful and alert. If you're taking this as formal meditation, we'll engage in tranquility meditation, where we settle the mind, settling the body, coming to the present, and cultivating one-pointed focus in tranquility meditation. Let's practice like that now for a couple minutes.
Unity is a beautiful word. What do we mean by looking at unity? Nowadays, especially in the USA, when we are facing a very divided electorate about to select a new president, unity has a very secular connotation. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but unity here continues on with our theme from the last several episodes, the theme of the two truths or two realities, apparent reality and genuine reality. In previous episodes, we looked at what apparent reality means in Buddhist thought and what genuine reality means, how we can understand it better from a meditational standpoint or from a reasoning standpoint. But it's kind of artificial. Those two truths or realities do not exist as separate, independent things. Rather, their unity is the full reality. Yet, when we look at Buddhist philosophy, there is a distinction made for purposes of practitioners so that we can understand what is going on. One way of understanding samsaric misperception is that we fall over, tumble into, or totally buy into our own version of apparent reality without any recognition, awareness, or even suspension of disbelief when it comes to genuine reality. So Buddhist philosophy will tease those apart and work with each through reasoning, meditation, and other practices so that we can understand them separately in order to live them in unity. Today's episode, we will take this integrative Dharma practice approach that looks at listening, contemplating, and meditating, not separately as we usually do, but in action, in its integrated way. This discussion and ways of working with the topic in meditation that we share with you today is but one example of how integrative Dharma practice, listening, contemplating, and meditating, working in a beautiful dynamic one with another, can really bring the Dharma to life in your heart and in your world.
I'm so excited to have this opportunity, just to have this conversation with Yeshe and to share it with all of you. I'm particularly passionate about how important this is, getting this understanding of the two truths, how it informs our view of reality, and how it affects us in our everyday life, whether on or off the cushion, engaged in overtly dharmic activities, or just going about our days. For me, one of the primary ways that this comes up and that I often see it playing out is in the practice of taking a step back from automatically believing my own perceptions and thoughts about something that's occurring in my life. Sometimes when I find myself getting very stirred up or reactive, this broader view kicks in and I'm able to disidentify with my strong reactions. I'm able to take a step back and recognize, I'm feeling very strongly about this, but am I seeing the full picture? So this may sound very familiar to you. It may also sound like it's not particularly dharmic or not exclusively dharmic. So let's explore a little bit more about what does that mean to Dharma? What does that mean in terms of the unity of the two truths? Let's take a moment for you as well to pause right here. Examine. What do you believe about the unity of the two truths? What does it point out to you?
Thank you, Zopa. I really think that this emphasis is so valuable. A lot of times when we hear about genuine reality, whether we're talking about it from the perspective of meditation or reasoning, it seems too abstract, too distant, too irrelevant, frankly. And what you're talking about is so important. Finding what I like to think of as portals or ways to access the transcendent right amidst the imminent hustle and bustle of our lives. Now, remember, when we speak of transcendent in Buddhism, it's not talking about some otherworldly realm or about leaving behind the world that we inhabit, apparent reality. Rather, it's talking about transcending misperception that enshrines false dualities. So unity, in many ways, is precisely that. The embodiment of a way of being that does not enshrine false dualities and rather uplifts the wholeness of experience. That's a pretty tall order, but we can start to connect with it in ways like you were just saying, Zopa, that are more immediate, more practical, and more grounded in our lives. It's no secret that one of the ways that I connect with this confusing project is paradox, to seemingly conflicting things coexisting. And I especially love the quote from the Buddha that you like to share a lot, Zopa. Nothing is as it appears to be, nor is it otherwise. This really gets to the heart of paradox for me. That sense that even though apparent reality is apparent, deceptive, obscuring, it is also not otherwise than it is. What it does for me on a practical basis is encourage me to expand my perspective, to be more inclusive of possibilities, so that I edge a little bit closer to the sense of wholeness that is able to contain seeming contradictions and much more than my little piece of the story.
This is such a vast place to explore, and yet it's very personal. It's very close to us. For me, one very concrete, everyday aspect that gets drawn out by this topic of the unity of the two truths is that of helping me understand a little bit more what's going on underneath the surface, to take that step back from my assumption that I'm seeing everything that's contributing to a situation. I like to pride myself on being fairly inquisitive, noticing a lot of different things. And in general, I think that's a wonderful quality. But I do see in myself that I can tend to assume that I have the full picture, that I'm seeing the different causes and conditions leading to my own or someone else's behavior or a circumstance of either conflict or agreement or anything like that. What the reflection on the two truths has brought about for me is a little bit more awareness of the subtle causes and conditions happening all the time. In general, I think we're pretty good at recognizing that there are many different things that, for instance, might cause someone to act out with anger. And I can think, oh, maybe they had a bad day. I'm not going to take it personally. All of these things are great. But there's much more depth when I start to incorporate the idea of karmic cause and effect, the recognition that there are subtle causes at play that I'm not directly perceiving. And this gives me such a sense of expansiveness, a loosening of the tightness of reifying my idea that things are just as they appear. that I'm in control, and starting to relax back into that sense of ease that comes with acting in accord with Dharma, with having these lovely guideposts of what to pay attention to, what to take up, and what to leave aside for my own well-being. Maybe we can pause here again for just a moment and examine anything that sparked your curiosity or perhaps resistance in what I've just said or that you've heard so far, and open up to it. Lean into whatever's going on for you. Examine.
Zopa, I think that is so relevant. It's a practice that we can bring into our daily lives, whether we're on our own or with others. This way of sort of putting Dharma into action really expresses what the Lamas speak about when they say practicing all the time, practicing 24/7, 365. That doesn't mean we're on the cushion 24/7, 365. We'd have to be Milarepa. And even in Tibet of old, there was one Milarepa. There's not going to be a whole lot of them in our present day and culture. That does not mean that we have to leave the Dharma on our cushion and go off into our day without the security and the ease, as you just mentioned, Zopa, of having the Dharma be a guidepost, a theme song, let's say, for our lives. For me, the way that that plays out is by taking things that arise seriously. This is the side of the unity of the two truths that recognizes that the apparent reality that I am experiencing right now is very true to me, even though there may be other people in the room that see it completely differently. And certainly there are millions in my own country who might see things differently than my own opinions. But those opinions, those ideas, those concepts of who we are, who others are, what the country is, what the world is, and so forth, these are so central to our idea of self in a reified way. Who are we without all of those opinions? And when we say things like, I just can't understand how somebody can think like that or do something like that, this especially comes up for me when I hear stories of people who do terrible things to little animals, like dropping kittens and puppies out of moving cars or something. I don't know that I will ever understand why somebody does that, but I can hold with a little more lightness, a little more expansiveness, that there are a complex of causes and conditions that come together in any given moment in an individual's life that lead them to feel, think, and act in particular ways. Just questioning my rigid idea of things have to be this way, or my inability to have just enough of a crack in my opinion set to allow that there might be a way to understand even the most incomprehensible thing if we understood all of the different traumatic, negative, and other karmic dispositions that might cause someone to behave in a heinous way, even. That doesn't mean we agree, approve, or look the other way. We may act with more confidence in addressing behavior that is inappropriate in a social and cultural setting, but we do so with a measure of equanimity. Now, equanimity sometimes makes us bristle because it sounds like what it's saying is, oh, don't think about anything, be dispassionate, don't care. Quite the contrary. Equanimity is exquisitely caring about every single thing and yet acting with an even keel, falling over neither into hatred nor into denial, but moving forward with a recognition of the wholeness of all that comes together, the complexity of paradox, and at the same time, here's that paradox again, having a clarity of vision that informs our actions. Recognizing the two truths, the reality of genuine and apparent expressions are in unity, is a way of understanding how our mind operates. The two truths is really about mind, our perspective. And when looked at in this way, the unity of the two truths allows us to be more inclusive about what we let into our perspective. So that perspective becomes panoramic in extent, not focused with tunnel vision on our particular subjective experience, but holding that with the seriousness and concomitant lightness to allow that maybe we don't have all the answers. Maybe our opinions are right for us, but not necessarily binding on others with different backgrounds, karmic dispositions, and so forth. This allows me to engage the world with more flexibility, more openness, and more surprise. Is there something like that in your life that brought you surprise or curiosity lately? Or maybe something you wish would bring you some more curiosity and surprise? Let's pause here and take a moment and delve into that, contemplating in your heart how an understanding of the unity of the two truths, that nothing is the way it appears, nor is it otherwise, can help you crack open that situation.
I love this because it brings in the sense of grace. It's the sense of being able to hold life lightly and yet fully, not hardening ourselves in the ways we tend to do consciously or unconsciously, but really approaching everything in our experience with this underlying sense of delight and inquisitiveness, allowing these cracks in our hardened shell of understanding, of assumption, of the way we've taken the world to be, allows the philosophical teachings of Buddhism to seep into our everyday, to inform our understanding. This is an organic process. It takes Buddhahood to be able to hold all that in its complexity and in its simplicity. And yet, we can benefit from it right here and right now. So to finish, let's again pause, ground, investigate. What is something that sparked you in this discussion? And by sparked, it can mean sparked your interest, but perhaps it sparked your curiosity, or perhaps it sparked trepidation or joy or any other feeling, insight take a few moments now just to sit with whatever came up for you, allowing that to be the sphere of your meditative inquiry as you investigate.
Allow the mind to release any thoughts, any analysis, any experience, and just rest, finding that beautiful balance point between mind's lucidity and its stillness, yet another unity shot through with wholeness, and rest there for a minute. From there, we'll move right to sharing the merit of this integrated listening, contemplating, and meditating with all beings, that we may all attain the expansive, complete, and perfect mind that can hold all that is in its complexity and its simplicity, in its interdependence and its emptiness, with utmost poise. Having attained omniscience by this merit, may we defeat the enemy of wrongdoing and liberate all beings from this ocean of suffering with its surging waves of birth, aging, illness, and death.
This is Zopa and Yeshe for PRAJNA SPARKS. Be sure to join us every month on the new moon for fresh episodes. Shivnee is our Tibetan singing bowl artist. Thanks for the generosity of giving us some time out of your day to like, subscribe, share, and review PRAJNA SPARKS. It really does help us to spread the gift of Dharma to new listeners. If you have any questions, contact us via email, Instagram, or Facebook. Check the episode notes for those links and for more resources on today's topic. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at PRAJNA SPARKS. Thank you for listening. May all beings benefit.